What's up guys, Lon here from Android Authority, and the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge is one of the most eye-catching and uniquely designed smartphones that we've seen from Samsung in a long while, and now they've gone and done what a lot of other manufacturers have done and given their flagship smartphone what I like to call the Plus treatment. Let's go ahead and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S6 Edge Plus. So at this point, whenever we hear the word plus in the name of a phone, we already know exactly what to expect. It's a phone that already currently exists, except bigger, and that's exactly what you're getting here with the S6 Edge Plus. It's the same beautiful design that we saw with the S6 Edge, with the all-metal frame, glass front and back panels, and the sloping curved sides on the display that gives the phone its name. For those that felt the regular S6 Edge was sharp in the hand, that feeling has been alleviated on the S6 Edge Plus due to the side rails being slightly thicker and the chamfered edges aren't quite as prominent anymore. It definitely is a big phone, so one-handed use is manageable but not always easy, and it certainly doesn't help that the phone feels pretty slippery in the hand. It's also quite the fingerprint magnet, and if you have any other color besides the white version, it's going to be very noticeable and you'll probably find yourself cleaning the phone often. The phone still looks great though, and if you love the design of the original S6 Edge, then you'll love the Edge Plus just the same. On the right side of the phone, you'll find the very convenient and easy to reach power button, and on the left are the volume buttons, but these aren't quite as easy to reach and can be a little awkward to get to with your fingers due to how high they are up on the chassis. Up top, Samsung chose to do away with the IR blaster for whatever reason, so there's not too much going on except for the microphone and SIM card slot. And finally on the bottom is the 3.5mm headphone jack, micro USB port, speaker, and secondary microphone. Up front, the Edge Plus features a much larger 5.7-inch display over the 5.1-inch of the S6 Edge. The resolution, however, remains the same at 2560 by 1440 or Quad HD, but the screen is still absolutely fantastic, and Samsung somehow always manages to outdo themselves each and every year when it comes to display tech. It's still an AMOLED screen, so it's got all the characteristics that you would expect, like vibrant saturated colors, great viewing angles, inky dark blacks, and it gets extremely bright, so outdoor visibility isn't much of a problem even in direct sunlight. At 5.7 inches, the screen is awesome for games and movies and anything else you want to do, so if that's what you're looking for, you'll love this screen. Because of the dual curved edges, the content that you're looking at will also be curved and creates for a very cool looking effect when swiping between screens. Some people say it looks distorted, but it definitely doesn't look distorted to my eyes, and personally I love the waterfall effect that the curved glass creates. In regards to performance, Samsung decided to go all in this year with their own in-house processor, and the S6 Edge Plus features the same Exynos 7420 that we saw on the S6 and S6 Edge earlier this year, but this time around you're getting an extra gig of RAM for a total of 4 GB. It's extremely fast in day-to-day use from general navigation, web browsing, and of course handles gaming and multitasking like a champ, especially with 4 GB of RAM. Speaking of RAM, the aggressive RAM management issues that plague the S6 and S6 Edge seems to have been scaled back on the S6 Edge Plus, with many more applications being able to be loaded and ran simultaneously before running into any unwanted app refreshes. Much of the performance improvements for Samsung this year also had to do with the scaling back and optimization of the software, and while the experience is mostly snappy, Samsung still hasn't figured out a fix for the scrolling stutters when jumping between Flipboard and the main home screen. It's not a huge deal and is a rather small blemish in the grand scheme of things and can easily be avoided if you use a third-party launcher, but if you don't, it is something you're going to notice quite frequently. You've got the usual bells and whistles for a Samsung flagship, like the heart rate monitor on the back and the standard home button up front that doubles as a fingerprint scanner. It's still just as fast, reliable, and accurate as it was on the S6 and S6 Edge, with just a simple press and hold of the home button, and its usefulness as a security measure is only going to improve when Samsung Pay launches here in the next month. Multiple fingerprints can be added, and the process of setting it up requires repeatedly pressing on the home button, which takes only a minute or two at most. The Edge Plus comes in either 32 or 64 gigs of storage, and there's still no micro SD card slot, and Samsung opted not to make a 128 GB version this time around, so these are the only two options you have when it comes to storage. As far as speaker quality is concerned, it's fairly standard. Obviously being mounted on the bottom isn't the most optimal position in the world, but it's definitely far from the worst. It does sound pretty good and it gets loud enough that you can hear it in noisy environments, but otherwise it just simply gets the job done. Now, one of the biggest issues with the original S6 Edge and even the S6 was the battery life, and it was pretty difficult to get through a full day. That problem, however, seems to have been fixed with the Edge Plus, and even though 3000 mAh still sounds a little low for a phone with a large Quad HD display, I've had no problems whatsoever getting through a full day. That's typically about as long as the phone would last for me on average, so I wouldn't expect too much more than that, but it is very easy to top off because not only does the Edge Plus come with fast wired charging, it also features fast wireless charging. This only works with Samsung's wireless charger, but Samsung claims that you can charge the phone in 2 hours time, which is 33% faster than normal speeds. That's still not extremely fast, but it's pretty impressive for wireless charging. The camera on the Edge Plus remains largely the same as the S6 Edge, and you can still double tap the home key from anywhere just like before to jump quickly into the camera. So what you're looking at is a 16 megapixel sensor, f1.9 aperture, and optical image stabilization, and the front camera is a 5 megapixel shooter, also with f1.9 aperture that makes for some pretty great looking selfie shots even in low light. The camera interface is where you'll notice the biggest change with the camera experience. You still have many of the same modes as before, like selective focus, panorama, virtual shot, and your typical auto and manual modes, but Samsung has now added the ability to create video collages that allows you to stitch 4 6-second clips together into one video for those of you who really want to get creative. The most notable addition is the live broadcast button, which links directly to your YouTube account to allow you to share moments right as they happen with your followers, similar to what you would find on something like Periscope. Samsung also made a pretty big deal about the improvements to the video side of things. They've added what they call VDIS, or Video Digital Image Stabilization, that works in conjunction with OIS for more stable footage, and in my experience the video recording is very stable and smooth without any sort of warping or distortion, so it seems to be doing its job well. Now, as far as picture quality goes, the Edge Plus takes very excellent looking photos, which is really no surprise considering Samsung's track record with cameras and the fact that this is again practically the same camera that we saw on the regular S6 Edge. In daylight, photos are sharp and full of detail with great contrast and dynamic range and very vibrant saturated colors that's become pretty typical of Samsung's image processing. HDR works well to bring out some extra detail, especially in high contrast scenarios, and if you don't want to fumble around with HDR, you can always set it to auto and let the camera decide for you. The f1.9 aperture not only helps to produce some great looking depth of field, but it also makes for some very good looking low light shots, and the images retain the same vibrant colors with noise only noticeable in the most extreme low light conditions. It honestly doesn't matter whether you're in daylight, low light, indoors, or outdoors. This is a camera that anyone can take out of their pocket and start taking great looking photos. Software-wise, you're looking at Samsung's TouchWiz interface running on top of Android 5.1.1, and many of the improvements that was made earlier this year have made their way over to the Edge Plus. It's a much cleaner, tighter interface with a lot less bloatware that makes for a much snappier experience. It's still a very brightly colored interface, but you can easily change it to look however you want through Samsung's theme store, and even make it look more like stock Android if that's what you prefer. You can expect all the typical Samsung staple features like split screen multitasking via multi-window and various motion-based gestures, but the biggest differentiator is the Edge specific software, which Samsung has made a few improvements to on the Edge Plus. You still have People Edge, Night Clock, Edge Lighting, and Information Stream from the S6 Edge, but Samsung has added a new Apps Edge that lets you handpick several of your favorite applications for easier access. The People and Apps Edge can now be accessed from anywhere on the phone and not just the home screen anymore, and the Pull tab can be relocated anywhere along the left or right sides of the display to make it easier and more comfortable to reach. All of these changes are very welcome additions, but the Edge features still don't feel extremely useful or adds a whole lot of value to the Edge design, so if you're considering the S6 Edge Plus, get it because you love the way that it looks, but don't expect too much out of the features that come along with it. The S6 Edge Plus is available now on all major US carriers for a starting price of $299.99 on a 2-year contract for the 32GB version, and will run you an extra $100 for the 64 gigs. If you decide to go the off-contract route, you're looking at $815 and $915 respectively. Just like the S6 Edge before, you'll have to decide if those dual curved edges is worth that extra $100 premium over other flagships. If you loved everything about the S6 Edge but wished it had a larger screen and better battery life, well, the Edge Plus solves both of those problems. Again, the value here is in the beautiful hardware and not so much the software, and if you're perfectly okay with that, then the S6 Edge Plus will be worth your hard-earned money. As always guys, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy it, please give it a thumbs up down below. We definitely appreciate it. And also subscribe to the channel, which is also down below if you haven't already. And if you want to see more here from us at Android Authority, make sure to check out the links over here on the side. And feel free to follow me on social media. Those links will be somewhere right here. And don't forget to check out the website as well, androidauthority.com, because we are your source for all things Android.